There is a kind of strength that doesn't come from muscles, money, or motivation. It comes from focus, steady, daily, deliberate focus on God in a world that pulls at your attention from every angle. Focusing on God every day becomes an act of spiritual defiance. It is how you rise above what tries to bury you. It is how you stay grounded when life shakes you. It is how you keep your heart steady when circumstances are unstable. When you focus on God every day, you aren't escaping reality. You are empowering yourself to face it with clarity, courage, and peace. Every day brings its own demands. There are pressures waiting for you before you even open your eyes. Responsibilities, decisions, expectations, noise, opinions, and problems all line up, eager to claim your mind. That is why daily focus is not optional, it is essential. You cannot drift into peace. You must choose it. You cannot stumble into strength. You must pursue it. When God becomes your daily focus, you stop letting the world dictate your emotional climate. You stop letting circumstances determine your hope. You stop letting fear narrate your future. Instead, you anchor yourself in the one who never changes, never weakens, never wavers, and never leaves. Focusing on God every day means inviting Him into every corner of your life, not just the spiritual moments, but the ordinary ones, the busy ones, the messy ones, the painful ones. It means waking up and saying, Lord, be with me in this, and then remembering throughout the day, Lord, I still need you here. It means training your inner dialogue to return to Him again and again, because the truth is, whatever you focus on grows. If you focus on fear, fear expands. If you focus on problems, problems dominate. If you focus on God, His presence becomes larger in your awareness, stronger in your heart, and clearer in your decisions. Daily focus on God transforms how you see the world. It softens your reactions, strengthens your resolve, and sharpens your discernment. Suddenly, you are not just surviving the day, you are navigating it with intention. You become more patient because His peace steadies you. You become wiser because His voice guides you. You become calmer because His presence reassures you. You become braver because His strength empowers you. Focusing on God doesn't remove the challenges, but it changes you in the midst of them. When you focus on God daily, you build resilience. You learn how to keep moving even when you feel tired. You learn how to stay hopeful even when nothing around you looks encouraging. You learn how to trust even when the answers are delayed. Daily focus strengthens your spiritual muscles. It creates a habit of returning to God before you collapse, before you panic, before you snap. It teaches your heart where to run when life gets heavy. This kind of focus is not about perfection. It's not about having flawless faith or an unbroken routine. It's about choosing God again and again, even on the days when you feel distracted or discouraged. It's about bringing your wandering mind back to Him. It's about remembering His goodness when stress tries to make you forget. It's about lifting your eyes when life tries to pull them downward. Focus is not a moment, it is a rhythm. And every time you choose Him, the rhythm becomes stronger. Focus on God every day, because life will always give you reasons to worry, but God will always give you reasons to trust. Focus on God every day because your strength runs out, but His does not. Focus on God every day because people change, seasons shift, circumstances evolve, but He remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. Focus on God every day because when you look at Him, you see possibility instead of impossibility, hope instead of despair, direction instead of confusion, and peace instead of chaos. Every day you have a choice to be consumed by what's happening around you or anchored by the one who lives within you. Choose the anchor, choose the steady place, choose the presence that never fails. Focus on God every day, and you will discover a strength that carries you, a peace that guards you, and a purpose that guides you in every season of life. To start your day speaking to God before you speak to anyone else is to make a deliberate, soul-anchoring decision that sets the rhythm for everything that follows. Most people begin their mornings with noise, alarms blaring, phones buzzing, messages pulling at their attention, responsibilities shouting before their feet even touch the floor. But when you choose to begin your day with God, you reclaim the first moments that the world tries to steal. You declare that before you interact with life, you will interact with the one who gives life. Before you hear the voices of people, pressure, or problems, you will hear the voice of peace. There is a spiritual alignment that happens when God becomes your first conversation. The mind is most vulnerable in the morning, open and impressionable, ready to absorb whatever message reaches it first. If the first voice you hear is anxiety, you begin the day tense. If the first voice is comparison scrolling through social media, you begin the day insecure. If the first voice is the rush of duty, you begin the day overwhelmed. But if the first voice you hear is God's, you begin the day centered, grounded, and strengthened. Speaking to God before you speak to anyone else is not a ritual. It is a way of placing your soul in the hands of the one who knows exactly what the day holds. When you open your eyes in the morning, your spirit is in a state of quiet sensitivity. This is why beginning with prayer is powerful. It doesn't need to be eloquent or long. It simply needs to be honest. A whisper of gratitude, a moment of surrender, a request for guidance, a confession of weakness, a declaration of trust. When your first conversation acknowledges God, you are reminding yourself that you are not moving through the day alone. You are inviting divine wisdom into your decisions, divine peace into your emotions, and divine strength into your challenges. The beauty of speaking to God first is that it stabilizes your identity. Before the world labels you, before the expectations of others define you, God affirms who you truly are. You begin your day not as an employee, a parent, a leader, a student, or a provider, but as a child of God. And when your identity is rooted in Him, you can face the pressures of life without being swallowed by them. You move from reaction to intention, from anxiety to assurance, from self-reliance to God-dependence. When you choose God first, you are training your inner dialogue. Every thought you entertain throughout the day flows from the first thoughts you cultivate. If you begin irritated, you carry irritation. If you begin grateful, you carry gratitude. If you begin fearful, you carry fear. But when your first words are lifted to God, your inner world adopts a posture of clarity and confidence that follows you into every situation. Before anyone else speaks into your life, you let God set the tone. And the tone He sets is always one of faith, purpose, and direction. Speaking to God first also interrupts the habit of rushing. Many people wake up already behind, running mentally before they have even stood physically. But prayer slows the spirit, allowing you to breathe, think, and receive. It lifts your gaze from the urgent to the eternal. It pulls your mind out of worry and places it into alignment with the one who already stands in your tomorrow. When you start your day with God, you are not just praying, you are choosing peace over panic, presence over pressure, clarity over chaos. This daily practice becomes a sanctuary, a private meeting where you offload what you cannot control and receive what you cannot manufacture. Strength that doesn't depend on sleep, joy that doesn't depend on circumstances, wisdom that doesn't depend on experience. You step into the day carrying something you didn't wake up with, something given by God in those quiet, sacred moments before anything else demanded your energy. Speaking to God before anyone else creates a spiritual shield around your mind. Throughout the day, people may come with opinions, problems, negativity, or demands, but because God spoke to your heart first, those voices cannot override the voice of truth. When you have already met with the one who holds the world, the pressures of that world lose their power to shake you. And this practice, done consistently, transforms you. Your reactions change, your choices shift, your attitude strengthens. Not because life becomes easier, but because your foundation becomes stronger. You are no longer starting your day empty and scrambling for strength. You are starting your day filled, guided, and anchored by the presence of God. To start your day speaking to God before you speak to anyone else is to make a deliberate, soul-anchoring decision that sets the rhythm for everything that follows. Most people begin their mornings with noise, alarms blaring, phones buzzing, messages pulling at their attention, responsibilities shouting before their feet even touch the floor. But when you choose to begin your day with God, you reclaim the first moments that the world tries to steal. You declare that before you interact with life, you will interact with the one who gives life. Before you hear the voices of people, pressure, or problems, you will hear the voice of peace. There is a spiritual alignment that happens when God becomes your first conversation. The mind is most vulnerable in the morning, open and impressionable, ready to absorb whatever message reaches it first. If the first voice you hear is anxiety, you begin the day tense. If the first voice is comparison scrolling through social media, you begin the day insecure. If the first voice is the rush of duty, you begin the day overwhelmed. But if the first voice you hear is God's, you begin the day centered, grounded, and strengthened. Speaking to God before you speak to anyone else is not a ritual. It is a way of placing your soul in the hands of the one who knows exactly what the day holds. When you open your eyes in the morning, your spirit is in a state of quiet sensitivity. This is why beginning with prayer is powerful. It doesn't need to be eloquent or long. It simply needs to be honest. A whisper of gratitude, a moment of surrender, a request for guidance, a confession of weakness, a declaration of trust. When your first conversation acknowledges God, you are reminding yourself that you are not moving through the day alone. You are inviting divine wisdom into your decisions, divine peace into your emotions, and divine strength into your challenges. The beauty of speaking to God first is that it stabilizes your identity. Before the world labels you, before the expectations of others define you, God affirms who you truly are. You begin your day not as an employee, a parent, a leader, a student, or a provider, but as a child of God. And when your identity is rooted in Him, you can face the pressures of life without being swallowed by them. You move from reaction to intention, from anxiety to assurance, from self-reliance to God-dependence. When you choose God first, you are training your inner dialogue. Every thought you entertain throughout the day flows from the first thoughts you cultivate. If you begin irritated, you carry irritation. If you begin grateful, you carry gratitude. If you begin fearful, you carry fear. But when your first words are lifted to God, your inner world adopts a posture of clarity and confidence that follows you into every situation. Before anyone else speaks into your life, you let God set the tone. And the tone He sets is always one of faith, purpose, and direction. Speaking to God first also interrupts the habit of rushing. Many people wake up already behind, running mentally before they have even stood physically. But prayer slows the spirit, allowing you to breathe, think, and receive. It lifts your gaze from the urgent to the eternal. It pulls your mind out of worry and places it into alignment with the one who already stands in your tomorrow. When you start your day with God, you are not just praying, you are choosing peace over panic, presence over pressure, clarity over chaos. This daily practice becomes a sanctuary, a private meeting where you offload what you cannot control and receive what you cannot manufacture. Strength that doesn't depend on sleep, joy that doesn't depend on circumstances, wisdom that doesn't depend on experience. You step into the day carrying something you didn't wake up with, something given by God in those quiet, sacred moments before anything else demanded your energy. Speaking to God before anyone else creates a spiritual shield around your mind. Throughout the day, people may come with opinions, problems, negativity, or demands, but because God spoke to your heart first, those voices cannot override the voice of truth. When you have already met with the one who holds the world, the pressures of that world lose their power to shake you. And this practice, done consistently, transforms you. Your reactions change, your choices shift, your attitude strengthens. Not because life becomes easier, but because your foundation becomes stronger. You are no longer starting your day empty and scrambling for strength. You are starting your day filled, guided, and anchored by the presence of God. To guard your mind like a treasure room is to understand that everything you allow into your thoughts shapes the atmosphere of your life. The mind is not just a place where ideas rest. It is the control center of your emotions, decisions, habits, and destiny. If your mind is unprotected, anything can walk in: fear, doubt, bitterness, comparison, temptation, negativity, and lies. But when you guard it like something precious, you begin to recognize that not every thought deserves access and not every voice deserves influence. A treasure room is secured because what it contains is valuable. In the same way, your mind must be secured because your peace, your purpose, and your identity are too valuable to be left exposed. Most people spend more energy protecting material things than protecting their thoughts. They lock their homes, secure their phones, guard their money, and monitor their possessions. Yet they leave the door of their mind wide open to anything that wants to enter. A careless comment slides in, a painful memory settles in, a negative post sticks, a moment of comparison wounds. Before long, the mind becomes crowded with thoughts that drain strength, distort perspective, and steal joy. Guarding your mind means intentionally choosing what gets in and what must stay out. It means practicing mental stewardship, being responsible with the kind of thinking you allow to shape your heart. Guarding your mind begins with awareness. You must be able to recognize when a thought is unhealthy, untrue, unhelpful, or unaligned with God's truth. Many chaotic thoughts disguise themselves as normal thinking. Fear pretends to be logic. Anxiety pretends to be preparation. Bitterness pretends to be memory. Comparison pretends to be motivation. But the person who guards their mind learns to question every thought. Does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does it align with truth or tear it down? Does it bring peace or produce pressure? When you evaluate your thoughts, you begin to control them instead of allowing them to control you. Guarding your mind also requires boundaries. You cannot consume everything, listen to everything, or engage with everyone and expect your mind to remain healthy. The content you feed your mind becomes the culture of your inner world. If you constantly feed yourself negativity, you will think negatively. If you constantly expose yourself to chaos, you will feel chaotic. If you constantly entertain discouraging voices, you will become discouraged. Your mind reflects whatever you consistently allow in it. To guard it is to be selective with what you watch, hear, read, and meditate on. It means protecting your peace by protecting your inputs. Sometimes guarding your mind means stepping back from environments that drain you mentally. Certain conversations are too heavy for where you are trying to go. Certain relationships are too toxic for the healing you need. Certain atmospheres are too negative for the faith you are building. Guarding your mind is not selfish, it is wise. You are not rejecting people, you are protecting your mental and spiritual well-being. You cannot grow when your mind is constantly under attack. You must choose peace even if it means choosing distance. Another part of guarding your mind is replacing harmful thoughts with healthy ones. You not guard a treasure room by simply saying, keep everything out. You guard it by filling it with what is valuable. The best way to defend against negative thinking is to fill your mind with truth, gratitude, purpose, and scripture. When your mind is full of what is good, there is less room for what is destructive. Gratitude pushes out comparison. Faith pushes out fear. Truth pushes out lies. Peace pushes out panic. Strength pushes out insecurity. A guarded mind is a filled mind, filled with what uplifts, edifies, and renews. Guarding your mind also involves discipline. Thoughts will try to slip in without your permission, especially in moments of weakness, stress, or fatigue. But the one who guards their mind refuses to let temporary feelings create permanent thinking. You must learn to interrupt thoughts that try to spiral. You must stop the cycle before it gains momentum. A guarded mind is quick to shut the door on anything that threatens peace, joy, confidence, or clarity. When you guard your mind like a treasure room, you begin to walk with a quiet strength. Your emotions become steadier. Your decisions become wiser. Your reactions become calmer. Your spirit becomes lighter. You are no longer easily shaken because your mind is no longer easily invaded. You begin to live with intention, purpose, and direction because your thoughts are aligned with truth rather than chaos. Guarding your mind is not about isolating yourself from reality. It is about protecting your inner worlds so that you can face reality with clarity and strength. To make worship a daily weapon is to recognize that worship is more than a song, more than a melody, more than moments in a service. Worship is a posture, the heart that pushes back against the weight of the world. It is spiritual resistance. It is how you fight battles you cannot see with strength you cannot produce on your own. When life presses you, when stress tries to overwhelm you, when fear whispers in the dark, worship becomes the sound that breaks through the heaviness. Daily worship trains your spirit to lift its eyes above the chaos, above the tension, above the uncertainty, and fix them on the one who remains unshaken. Worship transforms weak moments into divine encounters because it shifts your focus from what is wrong around you to who is right beside you. People often think of worship as something reserved for church, reserved for Sundays, reserved for when the music is playing and the atmosphere is set. But true worship is a lifestyle, not a location. It is the quiet surrender in the morning before your day begins. It is the whispered thank you when everything tries to discourage you. It is the internal acknowledgement that God is greater than your stress, stronger than your fear, and present in your struggle. When worship becomes daily, not occasional, you carry a powerful weapon everywhere you go, a weapon that lifts, strengthens, fuels, and protects you. Worship disarms the enemy because he cannot operate in a place filled with praise. Darkness cannot stand where God is exalted. Worship as a weapon means you use it intentionally. You turn praise into strategy. When you feel heaviness, you worship to shift the atmosphere. When your mind is anxious, you worship to silence the noise. When your heart is tired, you worship to receive strength. Worship is active. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you choose. You praise even when you don't feel like it. You lift your voice even when the situation hasn't changed. You declare God's goodness even when the evidence seems scarce. Worship brings your spirit into alignment with truth, and truth always exposes the lies that try to weaken you. When worship becomes your daily weapon, it retrains your emotional responses. Instead of spiraling into worry, you lift your hands physically or internally and acknowledge God's sovereignty. Instead of drowning in negativity, you elevate God above your problems. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you release the weight through praise. Worship shifts your emotional temperature. It cools the heat of anger, soothes the sting of disappointment, and breaks the chokehold of fear. It reminds your soul that God is near, God is working, and God is faithful. This reminder builds resilience because a worshiping heart is hard to discourage. Daily worship also teaches your spirit to recognize God's presence in ordinary moments, not just in church, but in the car, at the kitchen sink, during a walk, in the middle of your workday. Worship opens your eyes to the God who is always with you. It turns simple moments into sacred ones. It turns routine into relationship. It turns stress into surrender. You begin to see life differently because worship lifts your perspective. Problems that felt impossible now feel manageable because you are no longer facing them alone. Worship changes how you think because it changes what you focus on. Worship is a weapon because it invites God's power into places where your own strength is limited. When you worship, you surrender control, but gain victory. You stop trying to carry what was never meant to be carried alone. You stop trying to fix what only God can heal. You stop trying to force outcomes and begin trusting His timing. Worship softens the heart, clears the mind, and strengthens the spirit. It dismantles pride and restores humility. It breaks the illusion of self-reliance and restores dependence on the one who never fails. Daily worship also protects your joy. Joy is fragile when left unguarded, but worship becomes a shield. It keeps your joy from being stolen by circumstances, people, or sudden changes. It keeps you anchored when life is unpredictable. A worshiper can walk through the same storm as someone else, but come out with a different spirit because worship covers their heart with peace. Worship doesn't remove the storm, but it brings calm in the midst of it. It doesn't erase the battle, but it gives strength to endure it. When worship becomes your daily weapon, you carry a power that doesn't come from talent, success, or confidence. It comes from connection. You are strengthened not because you are strong, but because you are connected to the source of strength. Worship keeps you aligned with the truth that God is greater, God is present, God is working, and God is worthy. Every single day, to talk to God throughout the day, not just in the beginning, is to walk with a continual awareness that He is present in every moment, every decision, every challenge, and every breath. Many people treat prayer like a morning appointment, something to check off before stepping into the business of life. But relationship is not built on a single moment. It grows through constant connection, through ongoing conversation, through staying aware of the one who walks beside you long after your morning prayer ends. When you talk to God throughout the day, you move from a routine to a relationship. You shift from moments of spirituality to a lifestyle of communion. You invite God into the ordinary, the stressful, the joyful, the confusing, and the quiet parts of your day. Talking to God throughout the day means acknowledging Him not as a distant figure you visit occasionally, but as a constant companion who cares about every detail of your life. It means breaking the habit of handling things alone until they become too heavy, instead of waiting until frustration builds. You speak to him in the moment frustration appears. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you whisper to him when pressure first rises. Instead of trying to manage fears internally, you share them with him before they grow into anxiety. These small, frequent conversations become a lifeline that keeps your spirit steady and your heart anchored. This continuous dialogue with God doesn't require perfect words or long prayers. It can be a simple whisper. Lord, guide me here. Give me strength for this moment. Help me respond with patience. Thank you for this blessing. Be with me right now. These simple sentences turn your day into a spiritual journey rather than a series of disconnected events. They invite God's presence into everything you do, transforming the ordinary into opportunities for growth and connection. Talking to God throughout the day helps you stay mindful. It keeps your heart from drifting into negativity, fear, or distraction. The world is filled with noise, voices that demand attention, pressures that drain energy, and situations that shake confidence. When you maintain a continual conversation with God, you filter life through his presence instead of through your emotions. You respond from a place of peace rather than panic. You think with clarity rather than confusion. You move with purpose rather than randomness. This ongoing awareness becomes a spiritual compass that keeps you aligned even when life tries to pull you off course. One of the greatest benefits of talking to God throughout the day is that it stabilizes your emotional life. Emotions that go unspoken often become overwhelming. Thoughts that stay bottled up often grow heavier. But when you bring these things to God in real time, you release the weight before it becomes a burden. You allow peace to meet you in the moment instead of waiting for a crisis. It's like having a constant flow of strength instead of running on empty until you need a refill. Little prayers throughout the day keep your spirit fueled and your mind refreshed. Talking to God throughout the day also builds spiritual intimacy. It makes you sensitive to his voice, his nudges, his direction. When your heart is in constant communication with him, you begin to recognize his guidance more clearly. You feel his conviction more quickly. You sense his encouragement more deeply. You begin to notice his involvement in things you might have overlooked before. A parking spot that opens at the right moment. A conversation that lifts your spirit. A thought that brings peace. A solution that suddenly becomes clear. These moments stop feeling random. They become evidence of a God who is walking with you. This continuous connection keeps you from separating your faith from your daily life. Too often, people pray in the morning and then step into the day as if God stayed behind. But when you talk to him throughout the day, every part of your life becomes spiritual. Your work, your interactions, your decisions, your challenges. You learn to depend on him not just when you're overwhelmed, but when you're making simple choices, not just when life hurts, but when life feels normal, not just when you need rescue, but when you need direction. Talking to God throughout the day also builds trust. The more you involve him in your daily life, the more you see his consistency, his faithfulness, and his care. Trust grows when you experience God, not just in big miracles, but in small moments. He becomes not just a savior you run to in emergencies, but a father you walk with in every season. And as you maintain this steady conversation, you begin to notice a shift within yourself. Your thoughts become calmer. Your reactions become gentler. Your decisions become wiser. Your days become lighter because you are no longer carrying everything alone. You are sharing the journey with the one who understands you fully and loves you completely. To end your day with reflection, not regret, is to give yourself permission to pause, breathe, and look back with clarity rather than condemnation. Many people reach the end of the day carrying the weight of everything that went wrong, mistakes they made, conversations they wish they could redo, opportunities they missed, emotions they mishandled, or weaknesses that surfaced. Regret becomes the default lens through which they review their day, but regret traps you in what you cannot change. Reflection frees you to learn from what happened, grow through it, and enter tomorrow with wisdom instead of heaviness. Ending your day with reflection is not about pretending everything was perfect. It is about seeing the day through a lens of grace rather than guilt. Reflection allows room for growth. It invites you to examine your actions, thoughts, and choices with honesty and humility. Instead of punishing yourself for the moments you fell short, you ask yourself what those moments are trying to teach you. You look at your missteps not as final failures, but as indicators of where you can mature. Reflection shifts your mindset from self-criticism to self-awareness. It creates space for improvement rather than shame. You begin to understand that every day brings lessons, and each lesson prepares you for the next day. Ending your day with reflection also helps you slow down. Many people carry the intensity of the day straight into the night. They lay in bed with their minds racing, replaying scenes, overthinking words, and worrying about tomorrow. But when you take time to reflect intentionally, you untangle the knots in your mind before they tighten. You release the emotional clutter that has piled up. You strip away the noise and settle your spirit. Reflection becomes a mental and spiritual exhale, giving your heart room to rest. Reflection invites gratitude into the conversation. Even on the hardest days, there were moments of grace, small victories, unexpected kindness, inner strength, or unseen protection. When you reflect, you notice what went right instead of obsessing over what went wrong. You begin to see God's fingerprints in places you overlooked. Gratitude does not erase challenges, but it balances the narrative. It prevents negativity from becoming the only voice you hear. When you end your day with gratitude woven into your reflection, peace finds its way into your heart. Another powerful aspect of reflection is the chance to acknowledge your emotions. Too often, emotions are pushed aside because there's no time or space to process them during the day, but unaddressed emotions grow heavy. Reflection provides a safe place to confront them. Fear, disappointment, anger, sadness, joy, excitement, hope. You let yourself feel without judgment. You name what affected you. You understand why something triggered you. This emotional honesty heals parts of you that would otherwise carry unresolved tension into the next day. Reflection also strengthens your relationship with God. When you pause and review your day in His presence, you begin to see how He guided you, where He strengthened you, and even where you resisted Him. Reflection becomes a conversation with Him. Lord, here's where I struggled. Here's where I felt your peace. Here's where I acted out of fear. Here's where I could have trusted you more. Here's where I saw your hand clearly. This dialogue draws you closer to Him, reminding you that He is involved in every detail. Ending your day with reflection helps you release what you cannot control. As you look back, you identify the things you carry too heavily, things that were never meant to rest on your shoulders. You let go of burdens, surrender worries, and place the outcomes you cannot change into God's hands. The act of release brings emotional freedom. It prepares your mind for rest because you no longer feel responsible for everything. You close the day acknowledging that you are human, that you have limitations, and that God is still in control. Reflection brings clarity. It reveals patterns, why you reacted the way you did, why certain things drained you, why certain interactions lifted you, and what habits are helping or harming you. With clarity comes intentionality. You walk into tomorrow with a renewed understanding of what needs to shift, what needs to stay, and what needs more attention. Reflection becomes a bridge between today's experience and tomorrow's decisions. It equips you to do better without condemning yourself for what you didn't do well. Ending your day with reflection instead of regret creates emotional resilience. Regret keeps you stuck in the past. Reflection propels you forward. Regret drains your confidence. Reflection builds it. Regret punishes you. Reflection prepares you. When you consistently choose reflection, your nights become calmer, your mind becomes clearer, and your heart becomes stronger. You learn how to close each day with grace, no matter how imperfect the day was.